Today we're going to be looking at frequency tables or two-way tables, and we're going to be calculating percents that we then need to round. So the first thing that we need to do is have a really quick review on those two things, like real quick. So the first thing that we need to know is to calculate a percent, we always want a part to be divided by a whole. Right? My fraction is the part over the whole. And if I'm then going to turn that into a percent, I'm then going to multiply that by 100. So if I want 22 out of 78, right? My part is 22, my whole is 78. A good indicator is that of is usually the one that goes on the bottom. That's going to be important here in a minute. So you can use your calculator, use whatever. We'll do 22 divided by 78. Okay, and then we're going to multiply this times 100 to turn it into the percent. So it gives us this big old long decimal. So the other thing we're going to have to do is follow directions for rounding. So for right now, I'm just going to put 28.2%. Okay, but now we're going to talk rounding rules. So if you forget how to round, okay, you do always need to read directions, but for today, our rule is going to be to round to the nearest tenth. A problem might ask you to round to something different, so always make sure you're reading carefully. When we are rounding, we need to know our number position names, right? So in front of the decimal point is our ones, but after it is our tenths, our hundredths, and then our thousandths. So if we are looking to round to the nearest tenth today, we are looking for one place after the decimal point. I'm looking at that first position. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is if the value is less than 5, if it is smaller than 5, and if it is below 5, which means it's 0, 1, 2, 3, or 4, then we are going to round down. Now there's a misconception around the word down. Down does not mean change any numbers. Down means cut off the extra info. So if I look at 3.6493, right, here's my nearest tenth, I'm going to look at the next value. My next value is 4. 4 is below 5, so I'm going to go to 3.6. I'm cutting off all that other information. Okay, if the value is 5 or larger, 5 or greater, which means it's 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9, then you're going to round up. Okay, so if I look at the tenths position and I look at the number right after it, that's a 7. That's 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9. So that means increase that 6 by 1. So this would go to 4.7. If you still are not sure how to do that, that is something you need to make sure you're figuring out. You can let me know if you need me to provide you with some additional things. I have some videos you could watch or things there. Okay, but what we actually want to do today is look at these frequency tables or these two-way tables. Okay, where this is a survey that was done at WHS on what is the best Thanksgiving food. So we asked freshmen, sophomores, juniors, and seniors, a select group of them, and these are all the different things that they picked. My suggestion all the time is to fill out the total spaces in a table. Now, these rows and columns, this total row and column might not be provided for you. If it's not provided, I would still do it. Okay, I would still calculate those totals and make sure you're not making any mistakes. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to add all of these straight down, right? So I'm just going to do 6 plus 5 plus 2 plus 9 plus 7, all right? That gives me 29. I'm just going to start adding each of these straight down. 8 plus 5 plus 1 plus 13 plus 11. Okay, I'm adding straight down on each of these. All right, just put those all in a calculator, add straight down, and those are the totals we'll get. Okay, then we're going to reverse and we're going to start going straight across. So now I'm going to calculate all the totals for turkey. Okay, so now I'm going to go straight across. I'm going to do 6 plus 8 plus 3 plus 3. Whether you use mental math, whether you use a calculator, right? 5 and 5 is 10, 20. Okay, so you're going to start adding straight across for each of these rows. You do not have to do them as fast as me, right? You just have to be able to get those totals. Now, the thing that's important is this box down here is not all of these outer ones added together. What it's saying is that this row should be the same amount of this column. So if I add 29 plus 38 plus 19 plus 32, This row gives me 118. So now I'm going to add down and I'm going to double check. 20 plus 20 plus 5 plus 47 plus 26. That also gives me 118. That's telling me, okay, A, I didn't make any addition mistakes, but B, there were a total of 118 students. So when this first question says, how many students in total were surveyed? That is our 118. Now we might be asked more specific questions, like how many seniors picked pumpkin pie? So we want to find the merge of seniors. So here's my seniors column and my pumpkin pie row. So I'm going to kind of go across them until they meet, right? And that gives me 5. So I will have 5 seniors that picked pumpkin pie. Okay, my next question says, how many total students picked pumpkin pie? So if I went total students, I need my pumpkin pie, but I need it to go with my total. So my total is 26. Okay, so just asking general questions from this two-way table is one thing that can happen. Okay, another thing that can happen is we can be asked percent. So you'll notice our next question says what percent. So one of the things we set up here is that our percent was the part over the whole. And usually the word whole is whatever is going to be the whole is after the word of. So when we're looking at this in fraction form, whatever follows of is going to be on the bottom of our fraction. Okay, whatever is following then what we picked in this situation, but it doesn't have to be picked, chose, decided, preferred. Okay, that's going to be the top of our fraction. So if we look at this particular phrase, right, we see the word of, and we see what they did. They picked pumpkin pie. We're then going to look after the word of seniors surveyed. So I'm going to look at how many seniors were surveyed in total. That was 32. My 32 is going to go on the bottom. This tells me what row I need to be looking at. I need to be looking in my seniors column here. Like I need to be only focusing on seniors, right? I'm sort of highlighting this area, which I'll actually do on this one. Hopefully it won't confuse us on other ones, but so you can see, right? The idea is I'm doing seniors. There's my 32. All of those together are 32. Picked pumpkin pie. So now I need to focus on my pumpkin pie, right? So here's my pumpkin pie, and I want where that yellow and purple overlapped, right? After picked was pumpkin pie, and that is 5. So 5 is going to go on the top. Now this one's a percent, so I now need to turn this into a percent. So I'm going to say 5 divided by 32, okay, and we're going to multiply that times 100. So I get 15.625, but my rule today was that we're rounding to the nearest 10th. So if I'm rounding to the nearest 10th, here's my 10th position. I'm going to look at the number after. That is below 5, so I'm going to say 15.6%. So we're going to go through and look at some other questions here. Sorry, let me get the right version of this paper. That are all in relationship to this two-way table. Okay, so our next question says, what percent of the total students surveyed picked pumpkin pie? So after the word of is total students. So we know that total students is 118. So that's going on the bottom of my fraction, right? So I'm in my total students column, okay? And I want the ones who picked pumpkin pie. So in that total, 26 of them picked pumpkin pie. So I'm going to do 26 divided by 118. I'm going to multiply that times 100. And I'm going to round to the nearest 10th. So after the 0 is a 3. The 3 says to leave it be. So I get 22.0%. You could write that as 22%. Okay, there are other ways that we can be asked questions. So our next question says, how many more students picked mac and cheese over turkey? So we want to know, what's our total number of students who picked mac and cheese? Well, that's 47. How many total students picked turkey? So if we want to find the difference between these two, right, we would subtract them, which we would say 27 more students picked a mac and cheese. Okay, we can calculate percentages based on joint situations. So for example, this one says, how many freshmen and sophomores were surveyed? So if I want freshmen and sophomores, I need to do these two combined. So I need 29, which is my freshmen, plus 38, which is my sophomores, and that will give me a total of 67 being surveyed. So that if I'm asked a follow-up question like what percentage, so percentage means a fraction, of freshmen and sophomores picked green beans. So after the word of, I see freshmen and sophomores. Now, if this was a question standing alone, we would have to calculate that, but it tells us up there, 67 picked green beans. Okay, so if I look at this one, I am looking in my freshmen and sophomores, and I want picked green bean. Guess it's green, right? So I need where this overlaps. I need both the 2 and the 1, which gives me a 3. And so that's what number I need on top. So I need to do 3 divided by 67. Okay, which gives me this 0.04, so I'm going to multiply that times 100. So if I'm rounding to the nearest tenth, after the 4 is a 7, so I'm going to bump that up. So I'll say 4.5%. My next question is a percent. So what percent of students picked either turkey or pumpkin pie? So of students, that means my of on the bottom is all students. So we already know from a previous question, all students is 118. So if all students were in my total column, picked turkey or pumpkin pie. So turkey is 20, pumpkin pie is 26. So I need to add those together, which will give me a 46. So I'm going to do 46 divided by 118. And I'm going to multiply that times 100. Okay, now here I'm getting 38.983, right? If we're going to round to the nearest tenth, I look at the next digit, which is an 8. That tells me to bump this 9 up by 1, but that makes this a 10. So this is really going to go to 39.0%. Okay, our next question. What percent of sophomores did not pick turkey? So we want all the sophomores. So all the sophomores is 38. Who did not pick turkey. So I want everyone but the turkey. So I want a 5 plus a 1 plus a 13 plus an 11, right? Or I can just take that 8 away. That'll give me 30. So I'm going to calculate that. So 30 divided by 38. Multiply this times 100. So I'm going to look at my tenths position, which is a 9. Number after that is a 4, so it's staying the same. So I'll get 78.9%. What percent of students did not pick turkey? So I want now of all students, not just of sophomores, of all students. All students is 118, right? So I'm going to take all of the totals who did not pick turkey. So I'm going to add up everything but turkey. 20 plus 5 plus 47 plus 26. I don't want to add in the 20 because the 20 is the turkey. And that will give me a total of 98. Okay, so I'm going to say 98 divided by 118 times 100. So I'll get 83.1 when I round. Last question, what percent of juniors and seniors, okay, so I want juniors and seniors. Juniors and seniors is 19 plus 32, so that's 51. Picked green bean casserole or stuffing. Yep, green bean casserole. So I'm in my juniors and seniors. Picked green bean casserole. So there's 2, 0 plus 2. Or stuffing, 2 plus 8. Gotta add all those up. So I'll get 12 out of 51. Multiply that times 100. So I'll get 23.5%.